Hello everybody, my name is Pistachio8008, and as you can probably tell by the title and the general setup of the video, today's going to be a little bit of a different one. I figured today, if I can pull up my notes, I figured today that we should talk about a little bit how I make my music, right? So I figured I'd talk about the softwares that I use, how to use them, and then just general like music making philosophy and advice, some of my inspirations, all sort of that sort of stuff. And so the first one we're going to start with, because we are going to be talking about 4 if you count, they may be 4 but really 2. And the first one is Beepbox, which I use to make all of my chiptune stuff. So, before you do anything in Beepbox, first you can come down here. Before you do anything, I suppose, first come down here and look at all of this lovely stuff. This is useful. I would recommend learning this, because that'll help you make music quickly and efficiently. Next, I would advise you to come up here to Preferences and check all of these. Show piano keys. And that's just going to say, now you know what you're playing. You're playing C-A-G-E on a piano, which is helpful if you don't have perfect pitch, which I do not. Next, you're going to come to highlight 5th of song key, and you're going to want to change the scale to expert. Now what that does, right, so right now it's assuming we're in the key of C, so it's highlighting the 5th of that key in blue, right? So it's G. Meanwhile, if we change to E, the 5th is going to be B, so it's going to highlight that, and so on and so forth. 5th of G sharp is going to be D sharp, so on and so forth, what have you. All of that, that is useful. Come back to Preferences, show octave scroll bar, right, so now you can come up with a melody. So, and let's say, that C is a little bit too high. What if I take it down an octave, right? Let's try this one. That's a little bit better, so let's go. Not a great melody, but it'll work for now. Preferences. The last thing we're going to want to come in and do is show notes from all channels. I don't know why I didn't go in order, but basically that enables you to come to this channel, which is apparently a viola, and you can see the same notes that are being played in the other channels. So now I can go like this, which is beautiful. That's just exactly what we wanted. And the octave scroll bar here allows us, we're moving this down, right? But we're not actively, like we're not actually moving this phrase up here into a higher octave. We are simply viewing more of the octaves. So if we're going to do these, and now we can put that back, and if we come here, it'll see that as being in a lower octave, which it is, so now it sounds like. So basically we just have the viola parts doubling each other, right? Some smaller things, you can change tempo up here. Of course, it would be kind of bad if you couldn't change tempo. You can go as slow as 88, I believe. Can you go slower than that? Maybe you can. I didn't know that. Yeah, you can. You can. Okay. So you can go pretty slow, and as far as I can remember, yeah, you can go pretty fast too. So if we did that. So that's interesting. And then up here, of course, you can change the key, although that's usually established once you've already been doing some parts of the song. I'm just going to put this down to 130 here. So these are very useful things indeed. Let's just turn all of these into a 2, which I did just by highlighting them all, holding shift and going down and highlighting them. You'll get a hang of just like the mechanisms of how to use the website pretty quickly. They're pretty intuitive. But let's say, so we've got these, right? This is one measure. It assumes that these are 4 beats and that this is one measure. So each one of these little boxes contains 2 measures in it, right? And normally we like to we like to split beats up into groups of 4. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Like that. So I didn't want to start at the beginning though. It is kind of finicky with that. You just have to get used to it. So we have that in 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. So we can come to here in triplets. That'll split these beats into 3. And you can kind of hear the difference there, right? You can also do that in 6 if you really wanted to. You could split these each into 6 beats, or into 6 subdivisions, I suppose. And what I like to do, just so I have the option, is 8, because I can do here. I can do a lot of things with that, right? And so maybe I'll start out a song in 4, and then I realize, oh, I want this song to be like in triplets, triplet feel, da 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 da, right? So I'll put it into 6, and that'll allow me to do those triplets, or 3 even. So that's just general useful things to do. I'm kind of curious as to how this sounds. Yeah, not fantastic, but it does certainly sound. And then these down here control the volumes of each individual thing. So if I were to turn that all the way down, you hear nothing. Another useful thing that you could probably figure out is insert channel. You go to edit and you insert channel. And that'll just add an extra instrument, which can get pretty crowded pretty quickly. So I wouldn't recommend inserting a lot of channels. You can also come down here and change beats per bar. So like I was saying, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 beats in a bar. We can change it to 9 if we want the song to be more than 3, 4. And we can also just change the song length as well. So general multiples of 16 is a good rule, even if you are going to be in 3. So let's just like go for 64, because that's 16 times 4. And look at that, we have a lot of space. This down here, this is going to tell you like how long your song is, how long it actually ends up doing. So it'll start here every time, right? It'll come to the end of this purple, and then it's going to loop back on you. And that's just kind of how Beatbox works. It's made for like looping stuff. So that is the option if you want it. Now, let's come to here, perhaps. And as you can see, there are a lot of presets for you to choose from. Now, generally when I'm on Beatbox, I like to do more chiptune stuff, and this is still very much like chiptune primitive quality instruments. I don't want to say primitive, but like 80s era video game, 90s era video game quality presets, right? Which is what Beatbox was made for. But you can come up here. I like to stick in this general section, but you do have a lot of options for stuff. And there's a whole section up here called custom instruments, right? Let's put that right there. Boop, 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 boop. Boop. Thank you. So I kind of just filled that up, right? And if you don't want that sound, what you can do is you're on here, and let's say you really like the sound of gumdrop. So let's say you really like that sound. Come to customize instrument, and now you can adjust all sorts of things with it. Or you can just come into custom instruments and do that straight away. So let's go into harmonics for this one. You can change EQ filter, fade in and out. So let's hear what that sounds like. Pretty different. You can change actual harmonics, which is going to be kind of weird to mess with. You can change this sort of stuff. So if I want it to be dissonant, That's how you create kind of like scarier sounding stuff, almost. Fifth, it'll play the fifth of whatever note it's being played. That also does sound kind of weird and eerie. Piano. Kind of has a sort of piano effect. I like to mess around with some of this sort of stuff, but really all I like to do usually is change some reverb. Which is just going to make it more echoey, right? And that's pretty much the basics of beatbox. You can obviously do a lot with all these settings. Like there's a lot you can do here. But that's pretty much the basics of it. So it can be kind of overwhelming to go from like an entire empty beatbox thing, right, to a finished product. I just kind of wanted to show you what a finished product looked like. So this is growing up in the King's Court. And just so you can kind of see and hear how it is, I'm going to change some of these octaves around just a little bit so you can get the most out of this. I'll lower that down to there. That'll probably be good. And then drums. Percussion is always in its own separate track. You can add drum tracks by coming up here. Insert channel, that'll just automatically make it a drum channel. Delete channel. There we go. So let's give this a listen, and you can kind of hopefully see what some of the techniques I've been talking about. So like these are triplets, and it's in rhythm 6. It's still in C though, so I guess not technically, but... So as you can hear there, I accidentally changed which thing was playing, so it should have ended like that. Also, that's my first time I've ever worn headphones while listening to that, and that was really cool. But as you can see, there's sort of triplets here. I'm combining triplets and like, I guess these are still technically triplets, making chords and stuff. There's a lot of cool things you can do with beatbox. Like, it's a really cool application, I guess. So yeah, I provided you with it. Go nuts, do whatever you want with it. You can make a lot of cool stuff. Now, there is another beatbox thing called Jumbox, which when you open it up, it'll look like this. It's a modification of beatbox. And as such, there's a lot of other things you can do with it, right? There are, for example, there's a lot more presets, like a super lot, way more presets. And there's also my favorite part of Jumbox, at least, is down here, this little Twitter thread thing. So if you want to get inspiration of other people's works, you can click on one of these links, and would you look at that, there's somebody far more talented than I am out here making some cool stuff. I'm going to give this a listen. And like, it's really cool to just be able to go and get inspiration from all these other people. So yeah, give Jumbox a try if you're into listening to other people's stuff. It's really cool. Beepbox and Jumbox are two of my favorite music making applications. Would recommend. They're good starter music making applications also. Like, you don't need a lot of prior musical knowledge to get into stuff like this. All you really need to know is place blocks, make song. That's about it. Right? So anyway, that was Beepbox. beautiful, if I would say so myself. So the next program I want to talk about today is MuseScore. Now, there's two viable options here. You can either use MuseScore 3 or MuseScore 4. I used MuseScore 3 for a very, very long time. I only recently, like maybe 6 months ago, less than that, switched over to MuseScore 4 because MuseScore 4 has a bunch of Musa sounds. It also has a lot of plugins that you can enable if you'd like to do such things. I'll leave a link to download MuseScore 4 in the description. It is free, but it is a little bit more complex than Beepbox. So once you come on here, obviously when you first come on, you're not going to have any scores. These are just some of my scores that I have on here. Once you come on and you open up MuseScore 4 for the first time, you want to come over here to New Score, and it's going to give you these options. So you can create from template, which I don't usually do, and I don't see a lot of people do that, but if you would like to, you have all these options here for if you don't want to choose stuff. So like say I wanted to go for a symphony orchestra. Now I have a quote-unquote symphony orchestra, right? We're going to choose instruments today though. We're just going to go, I usually start off with like one instrument and then I move on to others as I go into as I'm like composing, because it's really easy to add instruments in MuseScore just like it is in Beatbox. So let's just start off. You're also going to want to go to all instruments usually. So let's just start off with a piano. How about that? We'll go next. That's going to take you here. You can decide the key signature. Honestly, it's not very useful for key signature unless you intend on A, printing the score, or B, if it like just really bothers you. But also, we don't tend to think in key signatures, right? We think like in terms of motifs, and then those are just in a key signature, so it's usually helpful to decide key signature later. Time signature, you can kind of figure out. We'll just do 4/4 for this. Tempo, usually all I'll do for this one is just show tempo marking so I can edit it later. And then again, multiples of 16. I like to go 256 for this one. Don't usually need a pickup measure. You can always add one later. We're just going to call this one example score for hit YouTube video. There we go. So you click done. That's going to take you here. This looks like a lot of stuff. It is kind of a lot of stuff. I'll hopefully walk through it with you guys. So you click on one here, right? And the very basis of MuseScore is right, you have that. And the way I got those notes is I just typed, so I want an A, so I typed A on the keyboard. Maybe I want a G sharp. I have a G. I need to raise it up a half step with my arrow keys. So that's basically it. And honestly, I kind of just put in notes and then just move them around with my arrow keys, honestly. You don't need to do a lot of that. Same deleting mechanism as with Beatbox. You just shift click and delete it all. Up here you have a bunch of options. So let's say I wanted it to be eighth notes. That's going to sound like. Beautiful. That sounded almost like one of the Minecraft. Sounded almost like one of the Minecraft things. You can obviously change to whole notes, or sorry, half notes, whole notes. You can go to 16th notes if you really want to. And there are keyboard shortcuts for these that it'll tell you if you hover over them. So if ever you want to go quickly, that's your way. Augmentation dot. I'm not going to explain like a bunch of music theory to you. I'm just showing you how to get to it all. Double flat, flat, natural, sharp, double sharp. Tie notes, so if you have two notes here and you want to tie them together, you'll come up here and you'll tie them, right? Simple as that. This is for slurs, legatos. These are all your accent marks. The ones I use most often are the staccato one and this just general accent mark, which makes it louder. I'm not too sure if these ones even do anything in MuseScore, and you'll find that a lot because MuseScore is meant for creating scores as well as for just making music, right? So it'll oftentimes have the things in there just for the sake of the score, but not necessarily so that they're audible when you play it. And that's just something you kind of got to get used to, what works, what doesn't. Triplets, again, I don't often use that though. I usually do Control 3 if I want to turn that into triplets, and now we have... you can subdivide them and then do triplets from there. Or you can even do things like... You can really do up to 9 if you... 9 tuplets if you really wanted to. V toggles whether or not it's invisible on the score. And you can change that here also, just make it invisible. Here you have a few other things. You can change these all to be the note heads, so you can change them all if you would like to. You can change the stem, you can change the beam, you can do a lot of stuff. But the big thing on MuseScore, right, as you can probably notice to the side, is all of these palettes. And by default, I do not think these are all here. I think you need to come up here to add palettes and just add things. And I think I have them all, except for apparently harp. So now that I have harp added, you'll come in here, lines. There's all your lines. Beam properties, bagpipe embellishments, that's only really for bagpipes, accordion. A lot of these are very specific, like fretboard is for like guitars, so is guitar. Tremolo, that's useful. Arpeggio and glissandi, that's useful. I find myself most often in tempo, pitch, dynamics, and text. These are my 4 most used ones, I think. I usually have these open. These are how you can like change. There's other things though, like so if I established, hey, I actually want this to be in F, I can put it in F. Or like if I want this to all be in alto clef for some godforsaken reason, I can put it all in alto clef. I want to change the time signature. You can make your own time signatures down here. It'll take you into this little menu. Let's say I want it to be 1764. That's my time signature, and now I can select that I want it to be in 17/4. Oh, cannot split tuplet. Never mind. That would break tuplets. I can put it in 5/4 though. So it is just kind of like a... It is kind of just like do with it what you will sort of deal. You'll get used to it pretty quickly. It's not too hard to manage. I would say I got to the state that I'm in within a month of active using it. Like, it's not very difficult, and of course you learn new things every day. For example, parts, mixer, just a few basic things up here. You can put these in sound fonts if you'd like. Metronome, you don't really need to use much. Parts, if you have many parts on a score, you can open them all and look at them individually. Play, that'll take you back to the beginning. This will just like move it out of here so you can have it in a separate dock if you'd like. This will loop it, this will turn on the metronome. Those are all sorts of settings that you can mess with, and this is how long your score is, right? This is counting beats, so here, we have it in 5/4. Let's turn on the metronome. If you watch it there, so that's all that's doing up there, and then you have your tempo over there, which I enabled earlier, so we can do things like, we want it at 180 now, well, now it's at 180. So, that's my basic guide to MuseScore stuff. There are a few other features of it. For example, you can publish your scores online. You can also save your scores to the cloud online if you have a MuseScore account, like on the website, which I do. I prefer to save just to my computer because it takes a long time to save to the cloud, and I save MuseScore a lot out of habit just so my stuff doesn't get deleted, and you can do that by just Control S or Command S or whatever system you're using. But yeah, for now, we're not going to save this because it's not really necessary. I will show you. Here, we'll take a look at this one. This is kind of what a complete MuseScore score will look like, right? We can listen to some of this, so... So you have this, right? We can look at the parts, like I showed you. You can open up all of those, so should you so choose. Let's say, I think the banjo's a little too loud. You come up here to mixer, you change the volume. It's not a very difficult app to get the hand of. It looks complicated at first, but like kind of muscle memory and stuff, you'll figure it out eventually. It's not too bad. Now your other viable option for MuseScore is MuseScore 3, and this one is less beginner friendly, but I am more familiar with it because I use this one for a long time. So as you can see, it's kind of the basic setup. Mixer's over here now, which is interesting. It looks a little bit different, but not really. Same basic setup, right? I think this defaults to piano. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. There are a few small differences, but honestly, I don't know why you would come to MuseScore 3 for anything. It is an option out there if you would like to use it, but I can't really imagine anybody choosing this over MuseScore 4 unless it is unless they're just more familiar with MuseScore 3. The biggest difference for me between MuseScore 3 and MuseScore 4, like MuseScore 4 has a few quality of life changes, like I really like having the little length of the song thing up in the corner in MuseScore 4. But really the biggest difference to me is MuseScore 4 offers you, like, you can download it with an application called MuseHub, right? Which basically is just a place where you can download a bunch of sound fonts, including MuseScore 4's built-in sound fonts, Musa sounds, which sound like really good, like they're really good for orchestral stuff. So that's the biggest downside of using MuseScore 3 is you don't have access to all of those, but on the bright side, MuseScore 3 offers you so much more control over sound fonts. So in MuseScore 4 and MuseScore 3, you can upload sound fonts to the application, but in MuseScore 4, it'll force one sound in the sound font onto that instrument, and you don't get to choose which. Whereas here, I've downloaded a train whistle sound font, right? If we come down here through here in Mixer, this is also I like Mixer and MuseScore 3 a lot better, just it gives you more options to choose from. But if you would look at all of these train whistles that I can choose from, I don't have to settle for one. If I want my music to sound like this, it can. And I don't know, I think that's pretty fun. So if you want to play around with sound fonts and you don't care about losing all that little bit of extra information, those little quality of life features, then MuseScore 3 is the better option. But if you're wanting really realistic sounds that are just built in to MuseHub, which does come free with MuseScore 4, then I would say go with MuseScore 4 if you're looking for the best sound. So, now we're going to actually get into the part of the video that I know you're all here for, right? Which is the part of the video where we're actually going to make a song, and I'm going to hopefully show you some of the ways I go about doing these things. Now, I'm going to be making this in MuseScore, and obviously things are going to be a little bit different in Beepbox, but they shouldn't vary too drastically. So, without further ado, let's get started on something. I will say, I had an entire segment of this recorded already that I didn't have my microphone plugged in for, so it didn't pick up any of my voice. And I also apologize for the robot voice in the last clip. I didn't realize that until editing. So yeah, I deleted that one. We're going to start anew. So let's make a new score. I'm thinking we want to do is, I like English horns. So let's do an English horn. And I think maybe just a piano, and that should work just fine for us. And we're just going to show tempo marking, change that to 256. Amazing YouTube song, take 2, yippee! There we go. Let's start something up now. So, one of the first things you always want to consider when you're making a song is what format you want it to be in. And this can change as you just kind of go with the flow when you're doing stuff. But generally, most songs are going to go A, B, A, B, C, B, right? And what a song format is is basically you have these parts of the song. You have a verse, you have a chorus, you have a bridge. Sometimes you have intros and outros and secondary bridges even. If you want to mess around with those, you can. And a song format is just the order that they're put in. So AB, AB, CB means verse, chorus. At least in this case, it means verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, and then the song ends on the chorus. Right? However, that doesn't have to be the main theme or what you do for your song. So for example, most of my songs are A, B, A, B, A, which means I have the first theme, and then the second theme, and then the first thing, and then the second theme, and then it ends on the first theme, right? But more triumphantly, we're not going to do that whole thing on here because this is just like a demonstrative, I don't know how it's supposed to be pronounced. It's just supposed to be a YouTube video. It's supposed to kind of teach these sorts of things. So we're just going to go A, B, A. We're going to start off with a theme. We're going to do a second theme. Then we're going to come back to the first theme and make it all triumphant and orchestral and stuff. So let's just come up with a little ditty here. So we have this first thing. Right, we have one bar, and generally what you're going to want to do with that for the second bar, copy and paste something like that, except change it up a little bit. So we have, let's listen to this. Change it up a little bit for the second bar, and then you're going to change it up a lot for the third bar, so. So we have something like that. And right away I'm noticing that this is an F natural, so I'm just gonna put this, I'm gonna guess that we're probably not in doodle-doo. There we go. So let's hear this whole thing so far. And you kind of want to make it so these four measures, right? You want to make it so they can loop back on themselves. And so let's listen to this and just hear. Right, so I'm thinking we have the piano enter on the second round of four. But I'm thinking we're actually going to have something go like bow-doom, 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 something like that. That's immediately what popped into my brain. And that's probably not going to be piano. Maybe it could be. We could pair we could pair piano with bassoon and see how that goes. And another thing you're always going to want to take note of is all these instruments, it looks like they're in the key of F because we're in the key of F, right? But up here, English horn is fundamentally, like there's a few instruments that are just tuned to a different thing as the piano are. The piano is correct, right? The English horn is just tuned differently. So we'll look at this. It's an E5, but it's sounding as an A, right? So that same note on a bassoon is going to be, right? Same note. If we raise that up to an E, it doesn't sound the same. So those are not the same note, right? So just, you're gonna have to keep that in mind when you're composing for stuff. So let's work on the sort of march style feel. Okay, I have some preliminary in place, so let's hear that sounds. Let's just listen to it. Music making requires a lot of going back and listening to what you already have, right? It's just how it works. So let's go back and listen, see if this contrabassoon part sounds right, and if it is, we'll double it with the bass staff of the piano. So I thought it sounded good, except for this kind of little middle area. So because it's kind of changing key center up here just a little bit. So let's listen to that again and see if we can make adjustments. Okay, so I think I've got it how I want it now. So And obviously, because the piano is a louder instrument, we're going to hear if it's wrong, right? So let's give this another listen. Piano is also just louder by default, so we're going to set it to mezzo piano. And here, it'll be easier to tell in the piano line if it's wrong than it is in the contrabassoon, but I think we're good. So, I think we're pretty good. And I'm even gonna lower the piano in the mixer, as well as change that to piano. So that's sounding pretty good so far. And I think we're just gonna wanna double that, and then we'll move into our B theme, perhaps. So this is our A theme. Okay, actually, I thought we were going to move into our B theme, but on second thought, this needs some sort of... We need some sort of percussion here, so we'll get a snare. We'll get a snare, and we'll get a bass. How about that? We'll see how that sounds. So I think we've got a sort of thing going on here with the snare drum, if you want to give it a listen. Right, and with that snare drum, I'm kind of thinking this is turning into like a military pastiche. So what I want to do now, hear me out, is we're going to change this English horn, turn it into a piccolo, and see how that sounds. And when you change instruments, you are going to have to just change where they're playing. That's a given, but let's hear how that sounds like. So... that sounds pretty good to me. I think we don't staccato these quarter notes, but other than that, this is turning out pretty good, especially this part. And honestly, I'm thinking we don't even need the piano because you don't really hear it. And that's not really part of the vibe we're going for. So, as you can see, the score's already changed a lot since the beginning. And so, yeah, things can change pretty quickly. But I'm thinking this is going to be our A theme, right? So we're going to start off with this piccolo. Maybe we just repeat this. We repeat this part just once more. Maybe change the end so we can transition better into the B theme. Okay, so we have a sort of thing going on here, and honestly, I think it sounds really cool. All right, I've started work on the B theme. I have like a melody for it, right? So here's the end of the, we'll start here. Here's the end of the A theme. There's nothing too terrific yet. These cymbals have been bugging me because I can't figure out a good place for them to land on the beat. So, whatever. We're gonna go and find some tubas, and we're gonna find some trombones, and that'll help our situation greatly, I think. So we have a tuba line in here, and now we're going to do one of my favorite things to do when I'm making music, which is sort of a call and response. So every eighth note, we're gonna have the tuba, it's playing this. And then in response to that, the trombones are gonna go like a little bow, bow. So it's gonna go like bow, 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 bow. If that makes sense at all, but so now I just have to put those chords in. So this is the chord we're going with here. It's not actually really even a chord, it's just like F and C, but let's see if we can hear this at all. The problem I've always found with MuseScore for trombones is that they're always just a little bit too quiet. So we're gonna have to really turn them. Stop doing that, please. I keep scrolling my scroll wheel instead of. We're gonna have to really turn them up. Alternatively, put them on forte and then pull them down just a little bit and see how. I think that's probably going to be the way to go. So, got our trombone line in. Let's hear how it sounds. I'm thinking these cymbals should probably be louder. The problem with MuseScore cymbals is that they're kind of like trombones, wherein the volume is difficult to control, but we'll see. Okay, I'm thinking everything loud. Everything gets to become loud right here in this section of the song. So we're going to raise the trombones back up. We're going to raise the tuba up a little bit more. We're going to bring down the cymbal a little bit. Hear how that sounds. Bring the trombone up just a little bit. This may be one of the few times when the trombone is actually loud enough. That's sounding pretty good to me. Maybe a little bit more rapid cymbal stuff. We'll have to see if that's too much, though. We'll put it back in mezzo forte and see how that sounds. I think I kind of like how they were before. It's, again, composing. It's a lot of back and forth. Let's raise these up and raise you up. What volume were you at previously? Unestablished, so we'll just set it to mezzo forte, and then we're going to have them all crescendo. Beautiful. So, that's what we're working with right now. We're going to repeat the B theme, delete all these because we don't need to be reminded of them again. And then now we're going to try and harmonize this trumpet, which is going to be a little bit difficult, but we can figure it out, I'm sure. Okay, so just a quick harmony line. We'll see how that sounded. So, I'm sure you heard it too. There were a few problems with that, being that this section right here, this little dotted eighth note to 16th, the 16th is far too quiet, right? So maybe we get rid of this bottom line and those bits of fastness, I guess, just to see if that fixes anything. We're going to resolve like that, and then, okay, so we have our B theme. right? I'm liking the song a lot, so let's listen to what we have at the beginning, because we're going to have to go back to this A theme after the B theme and see how that sounds. So it's sounding pretty good right now. I like where this is going. I think we can very easily come back to this theme. I did notice that these mezzo fortes are not actually where the instruments enter. So let's just take these 4 bars and kind of repeat them and see if we can fit the rest of the instruments into that. That's basically all we have to do now. We're also going to make, I think the contrabassoon's already forte from what I remember, and so is the piccolo. So we don't have to reassign any dynamics to those two. So really what I'm doing now, like, I have some ideas for finishing touches, so this is our transition right here. Here's B theme. And you hear how we have the exact same, like, bass line sort of setup with the percussion and everything. I'm going to change... No, I actually don't have to change. I already did it. So, what I want to do, double the piccolo. We're going to use... probably an oboe for that. It's just going to be playing the exact same thing as the piccolo, just a little bit further down. You can't really hear that oboe, so I'm going to lower it down an octave and see if that changes anything. Perfect. And we can literally just repeat this. How about we need something for the trumpet to do? How about we just have the trumpet do a little harmony with the oboe, which is just the flute. So let's see if that sounds good at all. I kind of just did a little bit of shenanigans. I copy and pasted it and then raised it up to the next line, and then I just fixed all the accidentals, which is kind of my bad way of harmonizing. I do that a lot. Okay, I think that harmony is good. So now we can set this back to normal. So basically we have our whole song established now. We just need to put an ending on it. And I told you this is going to be like a short song, right? It's like a minute long or so. It's really just A, B, A, right? One theme, the next theme, and then the first theme again. But I like it. It's a fun little military thing. And like, I might do something else with it at some point. It kind of reminds me of Sousa. So, let's just figure out a way to end off this thing, shall we? That's it. That's our song. The ending doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as ridiculously complicated as you'd like it to be. Or it can just be that. And look at that. We have a pretty simple song. I usually leave this little last measure at the end just so, like, just for when I export it as an MP3. But look at this. We've got a song. We have an entire song here that we just made. So yeah, you don't need to be intimidated by it. A lot of the advice people give, I find kind of, I don't know if I would say bad, but a lot of it kind of traps me in a box. Like, I remember when I was first starting out, there was a big deal, right, about, oh, chord progressions. Chord progressions at the beginning are how to do everything. I don't even know the chord progression to this song. And honestly, it doesn't really matter much when you're composing. People figure out chord progressions after the fact. I don't think you should start with chord progression because that kind of just traps you in a box. Like, the entire album Aliens on Earth was made out of weird chord progressions I found online, right? I was just trying to test out what it would sound like. And what it sounded like was, it was a cool album. I really liked that album. But all of the songs were like a minute long because I just felt like I couldn't go anywhere with the chord progressions I had been given, if that makes any sense. Like, if you start with chord progressions, there's only so much you can do with the same 4, 5, 6 chords. And then you kind of get bored of it, and I don't want to drag stuff out for longer than it needs to be. So, I wouldn't advise you to start with chord progressions at the very least. If they're a thing that interests you, then go for it. But as a starting point, I would not say so. And the last thing you really got to do with this is just kind of export it as an MP3. So you come up here to publish, you go to export, MP3 audio, export. We're going to call this military pistachio. How about that? And then it should just export to your desktop or wherever you have it set to export to. So I think this is, after having basically finished the whole thing, I think this is the longest video I've ever made. This sort of try to show you how I make my music at least. Hopefully it was informative at the very least. At the most, hopefully it taught you something. I didn't realize how much MuseScore and Beepbox had to explain until I had to explain them. And then it was a little bit of a lot. So I apologize for the very lengthy video. I'll be dividing it up into timestamps below. But looking at my notes, there was one last thing that I wanted to talk about, which was a bunch of my inspirations for music making. And so I figured instead of like making a whole segment talking about them all and listening to them all, I'd just link a bunch of them down in the description. Like just some songs that have inspired me in the past. It's nothing too big, some artists, some songs. If any of you would even be interested in that, it'll be all down in the description. But I want to thank you all for coming here today and watching this very lengthy video. It was recorded in many takes because this is with the new microphone, obviously. This is also kind of a setup for like capturing desktop audio, which was a success, I would say. And then also, this is a video I've been planning about doing for a long time, so I wanted to do it at least moderately well, right? Which I hope I accomplished today. So that's going to be it from me today. I'll see you in the next video. It's probably not going to be a lengthy, long tutorial sort of thing like this. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!